I'm Audrey Thompson, 32, a financial planner who's always been the responsible one with money. Last Saturday, I arrived at Willow Creek Garden Resort, the $3,000 venue I'd booked and paid for our annual family reunion. The place was empty except for my mother, who showed up an hour late carrying a plastic container. She laughed, saying, "We decided to have the gathering at your sister's place instead. We brought you some leftovers." I forced a smile while something inside me finally snapped. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and subscribe if family drama hits close to home. Being the middle child in the Thompson family has always meant one thing: responsibility without recognition. At 32, I've spent my entire life sandwiched between my older sister Grace, 35, and my younger brother Kyle, 28. Grace has always been the golden child, the one whose accomplishments were celebrated with elaborate parties and expensive gifts. Kyle, as the baby of the family, could do no wrong. His mistakes were always brushed aside with a laugh and an indulgent smile from our parents. Then there was me, reliable Audrey, the one who would always step up when needed. The one who would always pay. The one who would always be taken for granted. The pattern started early. When we were kids, if something broke in the house, I'd be the one paying for it out of my babysitting money, even if Kyle was the one who broke it. "You know your brother doesn't have any money," Mom would say. "And you're so good with money, Audrey." By the time I was 16, I was contributing to household bills while Grace got a new car for her birthday. As adults, the pattern only intensified. Last Christmas, I paid for a family vacation to Colorado, airfare, cabin rental, even ski lessons for Kyle's kids. Grace brought some cookies she'd baked. Kyle brought his appetite and complaints about the cabin not having a hot tub. Neither offered to contribute financially, not even for their own expenses. When I hinted about splitting costs, Mom changed the subject and Dad stared at his phone. For Mom's 60th birthday last year, I organized and paid for an elaborate party at her favorite restaurant. 50 guests, top shelf open bar, custom cake, professional photographer, the works. The final bill came to over $4,000. Grace took credit for the centerpieces she'd ordered online for $50. Kyle showed up an hour late with a hastily purchased card. During the speeches, neither of my siblings thanked me for organizing everything. Mom thanked the family for such a wonderful celebration. My success as a financial planner has somehow become another weapon against me. When I was promoted to senior financial advisor last year, Grace rolled her eyes and said, "Well, we can all be obsessed with money, Audrey." This coming from the woman who regularly asked me for loans she never repaid. Meanwhile, Kyle's part-time job at a sporting goods store was praised as finding his passion. My parents beamed with pride when he was named Employee of the Month, but barely acknowledged when I was featured in a financial magazine. I paid my own way through college. Student loans, 3 part-time jobs, and a strict budget got me through my finance degree. Grace dropped out after 2 years when it got too stressful. And my parents paid for Kyle's entire education at a private university. He changed majors 4 times and took 6 years to graduate. When I mentioned the disparity once, Mom said, "You didn't need our help, Audrey. You've always been so independent." My best friend Leah Martinez has witnessed this dynamic for years. We met in college when we both worked at the campus coffee shop, and she's been my rock through every family disappointment. "Your family treats you like an ATM," she told me last month after I paid for Dad's surprise birthday dinner. "They press a few buttons: guilt, obligation, family duty, and out comes the cash." I knew she was right. But breaking family patterns is harder than it sounds. "One day, they'll push too far," Leah warned. "And you'll finally say enough." Despite everything, family reunions mattered to me. They were started by my grandmother Eleanor before she passed away 5 years ago. She was the only one who seemed to see me clearly. Who would whisper, "You're my practical girl," with genuine admiration rather than as a way to extract more help from me. The annual gatherings were her legacy, and keeping them going felt like keeping a part of her alive. Each year, I hoped this would be the time my contributions were valued, my efforts appreciated. Each year, I was disappointed. But nothing prepared me for this year's betrayal. The planning for this year's Thompson family reunion began 3 months ago in our family group chat, aptly named Thompson Family Circle. Mom kicked things off with her usual enthusiasm. It's time to start planning our annual reunion. Who's taking charge this year? Before I could even respond, Grace chimed in. Audrey should do it. She's so good with details and planning. Cal quickly agreed. Yeah, financial planners are organized, right, sis? You got this. I hesitated before responding. Last year, I'd handled everything and received little help or appreciation. But Grandma Eleanor's voice echoed in my head. Family matters, Audrey. So I agreed. I'll coordinate, I wrote. But can we discuss splitting the costs this year? I was thinking we could divide everything equally between the adults. The silence in the chat was deafening. 3 hours later, Mom finally responded. Let's figure that out later. First, let's decide on a venue. That later never came. Over the next few weeks, I suggested cost sharing multiple times, but my messages were either ignored or met with vague responses. Money's a bit tight right now, Grace would say, despite her recent social media posts about her new designer purse. I'll contribute what I can, Kyle would promise, which historically meant nothing. I started researching venues, creating a spreadsheet with options and costs that I shared with everyone. The responses trickled in with preferences, but no offers to help financially. Dad wanted somewhere with fishing nearby. Mom insisted on a place that could accommodate her gardening club friends who always joined for part of the day. Grace wanted somewhere Instagram-worthy with good lighting. Carl asked for a location with activities for his kids. After 2 weeks of searching, I found Willow Creek Garden Resort, a beautiful property with gardens for Mom, a fishing pond for Dad, scenic spots for Grace's photos, and a playground for Kyle's children. It was perfect, but expensive, $3,000 for the day, not including food or decorations. This place looks amazing. Grace gushed in the group chat when I shared photos. The kids will love it, Kyle added. It's exactly what I envisioned, Mom wrote. Your grandmother would have loved it. No one asked about the cost. When I mentioned the price and again suggested sharing expenses, the conversation quickly shifted to menu preferences. Grace's husband suddenly developed a gluten intolerance. Kyle's kids wouldn't eat anything green or mushy. Mom wanted her favorite chicken dish from a specific caterer across town. I spent my lunch breaks calling vendors and my evenings comparing prices. I took a day off work to drive to the venue and meet with the manager, Emma, who was impressed with my detailed planning. Most families argue about these decisions, she remarked. You seem to have everything handled perfectly. If only she knew. The shopping trips began a month before the event. Personalized place settings with everyone's names and photos. Custom party favors commemorating Grandma Eleanor. A professional photographer booked to capture the day. Special dietary compliant dishes for everyone's suddenly specific food requirements. The costs mounted, all on my credit card. 2 weeks before the reunion, I sent a final confirmation message to the family chat. Everything set for Saturday, June 10th at Willow Creek Garden Resort. Arrival time is 11 a.m. I've put down all the deposits and payments. It would really help if everyone could contribute something toward the costs, which are currently at $3,274.56. Mom replied with a heart emoji. Grace sent a thumbs up. Carl didn't respond at all. Dad called me that evening. The venue looks great, sweetheart. Mom showed me the pictures. We're all looking forward to it. Dad, I said carefully, I mentioned splitting the costs. It's quite expensive, and I've covered everything so far. Oh, you know how things are, he said vaguely. We'll figure something out. Your sister just had to buy new tires. And Kyle's hours got cut at the store. But we appreciate you handling everything. You're so good at it. The conversation moved on, as it always did when money was mentioned. The night before the reunion, I stayed up late preparing the final touches. I wrote heartfelt cards for each family member, created a slideshow of family photos dating back to Grandma Eleanor's childhood, and packed cooling containers for the catered food I would pick up in the morning. I was exhausted but hopeful. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they would see how much I cared, how much effort I put in. I received multiple messages that evening confirming attendance. Grace asked if she could bring her new boyfriend along with her husband and kids. The more the merrier, I replied, recalculating food portions in my head. Kyle confirmed he'd be there with his 3 children, but mentioned his wife wasn't feeling well. Mom sent a message asking if I'd remembered her friend Diane from Garden Club. She's so looking forward to it. I fell asleep surrounded by reunion materials, my alarm set for 6 a.m. to ensure I'd have time to pick up the catering, deliver it to the venue, and set up before everyone arrived at 11. I had no idea that while I was preparing for a perfect family gathering, my family had already made other plans. My alarm jolted me awake at 6 a.m. sharp on Saturday morning. Despite having slept only 4 hours, I felt energized by anticipation. Today would be different. Today my family would finally see and appreciate all that I do for them. I showered quickly and dressed in the new outfit I'd bought specifically for the reunion, a sky blue dress that Grandma Eleanor would have loved. At 7 a.m., I was out the door. Headed to Angelo's catering to pick up the food I'd ordered, Mom's favorite lemon chicken, Dad's preferred ribeye steak, Grace's gluten-free pasta, and chicken fingers for Kyle's picky kids. I'd even remembered vegetarian options for Grace's new boyfriend, whom I'd never met. Big event today? Angelo asked as his staff loaded the carefully packaged food into my car. Annual family reunion, I replied, handing over my credit card for the $845.67 bill. 18 people. They're lucky to have you organizing it, he said with a kind smile. By 8:30 a.m., I arrived at Willow Creek Garden Resort. Emma, the venue manager, greeted me warmly and helped me unload the catering. The place looked even more beautiful than during my previous visits. The gardens were in full bloom, and the staff had arranged the tables exactly as I'd requested, with the spectacular pond view that I knew Mom would love. You're incredibly organized, Emma commented as I began setting up the personalized place settings. Each family member had a custom place card featuring a meaningful photo, Mom holding her first grandchild, Dad with his prized fishing catch, Grace at her dance recital, Kyle scoring the winning goal in his high school soccer match. For the grandkids, I'd included their artwork. No detail had been overlooked. By 10:30 a.m., everything was perfect. The food was keeping warm in the catering trays. The slideshow was queued up on the projector I'd rented. The photographer was scheduled to arrive at 11:15 after everyone had settled in. I sent a quick message to the family group chat. Everything's ready at Willow Creek. Can't wait to see everyone soon. No one responded. At 11 a.m., I sat at the main table, smoothing my dress and checking my phone. No messages. Perhaps they were driving and couldn't text. By 11:30 a.m., the photographer had arrived, but no family members had. I called Mom's cell phone. No answer. I texted Dad. No response. I called Grace, then Kyle. Straight to voicemail. At 11:45 a.m., I sent another group message. Is everyone okay? We're all set up and waiting at Willow Creek. Kyle finally responded at noon. Oh, is that today? Grace texted seconds later. Running a bit late. Traffic. I felt my first twinge of serious concern. The food would only stay good for so long. The venue was booked until 6 p.m. The photographer was charging by the hour. Already snapping pictures of the empty tables and beautiful but vacant venue. At 12:30 p.m., Mom finally called. Audrey, honey, didn't you get our messages? Her voice was light, casual. What messages? No one told me anything. We're all waiting at Willow Creek. My voice caught as I looked around at the empty tables. The photographer is here. The food is getting cold. Oh dear. Mom said, but she didn't sound particularly concerned. There's been a change of plans. Grace offered to host at her house since it's closer for everyone. We're all here now. We tried to reach you. The background noise told the story her words didn't. Laughter, music, the unmistakable sounds of a party in full swing. You're all at Grace's? I struggled to comprehend what she was saying. Right now? The entire family? Yes, honey. It was a last-minute decision. You know how these things happen. I checked my phone again. No missed calls, no text messages about any change of plans. Nothing. I've been here since 8:30 setting everything up, I said, my voice shaking. I paid for this venue months ago. I've been planning this for weeks. You all confirmed yesterday. Well, these things happen, Mom repeated. Grace decided it would be easier for everyone to meet at her place. You know her house has that new pool area she's been wanting to show off. More laughter in the background. I heard Kyle's voice call out something unintelligible, followed by more laughter. We'll save you some food, Mom added brightly. In fact, I can bring you some leftovers. Where are you again? The casual dismissal of weeks of my planning and thousands of dollars of my money left me speechless for several seconds. Willow Creek Garden Resort, I finally managed. The place I've been telling everyone about for months. Right. I'll stop by with a plate for you. Though it might be an hour or so. We're just about to cut the cake. Cake. They even had a cake. For the reunion that I had planned. That I was supposed to be hosting. I ended the call and sat alone at the large, beautifully decorated table. The photographer approached tentatively. Is everything okay? Should we wait a bit longer? I looked at my watch. It was nearly 1 p.m. No, I said quietly. No one is coming. You can go. I'll still pay you for the full time, of course. After he left, I spoke with Emma about the situation. Her eyes filled with sympathy as I explained that the family had changed plans without telling me. She helped me pack up the untouched food and decorations, refusing to charge me the full amount for the venue despite their policy. Keep the difference, I insisted, feeling numb. It's not your fault my family didn't show up. I was loading the last of the decorations into my car when Mom's SUV pulled into the parking lot at 2:45 p.m. She emerged holding a plastic container, her hair slightly damp from what I assumed was time in Grace's pool. There you are, she called out, as if I was the one who had been missing. We had such a lovely gathering. Grace's new landscaping looks incredible. You should see what she's done with the backyard. She handed me the container of leftovers, mismatched food items thrown together without care. We missed you, but everyone understood you were busy with. She waved vaguely at the venue behind me, all this. As she stood there, smiling as if she'd done me a favor by bringing scraps from a party I was supposed to host, something in me finally broke. The weight of years being taken for granted, being used as the family ATM while receiving nothing in return, came crashing down. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I felt an eerie calm settle over me. Thank you for the leftovers, Mom, I said, placing the container in my passenger seat. I need to get going now. Aren't you going to come back to Grace's? Everyone's still there. Kyle set up the badminton net. No, I said simply. I don't think I will. As I drove away from Willow Creek Garden Resort, the container of leftovers on my passenger seat felt like a symbol of every time my family had taken from me while giving scraps in return. The digital receipt from the venue payment glowed on my phone screen, $3,274.56. Money I would never get back. But perhaps this time, the lesson was worth the cost. The drive home was silent. No radio, no calls, just me and the container of leftovers mocking me from the passenger seat. By the time I reached my apartment, the emotional numbness had worn off, replaced by waves of hurt and humiliation crashing over me with increasing intensity. I barely made it through my front door before the tears came. Not delicate, dignified tears, but ugly. Gasping sobs that left me curled on my living room floor. All those weeks of planning, the thousands of dollars spent, the excitement and hope I'd felt that morning, all of it crushed by my family's casual disregard. When my phone rang, I lunged for it, thinking perhaps someone in my family had realized the magnitude of what they'd done. But it was Leah's name on the screen. How's the reunion going? She asked cheerfully. Did they finally appreciate all your hard work? I couldn't speak through the sobs. Audrey? What happened? Are you okay? When I finally managed to explain between gasping breaths, the silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes. I'm coming over, Leah said. Don't move. I'll bring wine. 20 minutes later, Leah was at my door with 2 bottles of Merlot and a fierce, protective expression. She listened as I recounted every detail, the perfectly arranged tables, the personalized place settings, the promises from each family member that they would be there. And then your mom had the audacity to bring you leftovers? Leah paced my living room, wine glass in hand. Like you're some distant relative they forgot to invite? She didn't seem to think it was a big deal, I said, scrolling through my phone. None of them did. Check social media. Leah suggested grimly. $10 says they posted about their wonderful family time. She was right. Grace's Instagram was filled with photos from the day my family gathered around her backyard pool, everyone smiling, the caption reading, "Spontaneous Thompson family reunion at our place." Sometimes the best gatherings are unplanned. #FamilyTime, #blessed. The pictures told the story of a joyful family event, Dad manning the grill, Mom arranging flowers on the patio table, Kyle playing with his kids in the pool. Everyone looked happy. No one seemed to be missing me at all. Comments under the photos made it worse. Such a beautiful family. You Thompsons know how to party. Love how close you all are. In one photo, I spotted the cake, a large sheet cake with Thompson Family Reunion 2023 written in blue icing. They had planned this. This wasn't spontaneous. They had deliberately excluded me from the family gathering I had paid for. As we scrolled through more photos, my phone rang. Mom calling. Are you going to answer it? Leah asked. I took a deep breath and put the phone on speaker. Audrey, honey, are you coming to Grace's? Everyone's asking about you. The casual lie made my stomach turn. No one had texted me. No one had called until now, hours later. No, Mom. I'm not coming. I spent the day at the venue I paid for, waiting for my family who never showed up. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Mom said dismissively. Plans change. Grace's place was more convenient for everyone. More convenient than the venue I paid over $3,000 for, the one you all agreed to and confirmed yesterday. Well, we didn't ask you to spend that much. Mom's voice took on a defensive edge. You always go overboard with these things, Audrey. Not everyone has your kind of money to throw around. The injustice of her statement left me speechless. Leah, witnessing my stunned silence, grabbed the phone. Mrs. Thompson, this is Leah. What you did today was incredibly hurtful and disrespectful. Audrey spent thousands of dollars and countless hours planning this reunion that you all abandoned without even telling her. This is between family, Leah, Mom replied coldly. Audrey knows we appreciate her. She doesn't need to make such a fuss about money. That's the problem with being a financial planner. Everything becomes about dollars and cents instead of family. I took the phone back from Leah. This isn't about dollars and cents, Mom. This is about respect. About acknowledging my time and effort. About treating me like a member of the family instead of an ATM. An ATM? That's ridiculous. You're being overly sensitive. I have to go, Mom, I said, suddenly exhausted. Enjoy the rest of the reunion. After hanging up, I tried to distract myself, but my phone kept buzzing with messages from family members who had suddenly remembered my existence. Dad, your mother says you're upset. Don't be like that, sweetheart. Family is family. Grace, sorry you couldn't make it to my place. It was a last-minute decision since my house is more central for everyone. Hope you understand. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Kyle, sis, you missed a great party. Mom says you're mad we changed locations? Don't be so uptight, LOL. Only Aunt Susan, Mom's sister who had always been kind to me, seemed to understand. Her message read, Audrey, I just heard what happened. I'm so sorry. That was terribly thoughtless of everyone. Please call me if you want to talk. When I called her, Aunt Susan was appropriately horrified. I couldn't believe it when your mother mentioned casually that you weren't there because you were stuck at some venue. I asked what venue, and when she explained, I was speechless. I had no idea you'd planned and paid for the original reunion. It's fine, I said automatically, the people-pleasing response so ingrained I couldn't stop it. It's not fine, Aunt Susan insisted. It's awful, and you have every right to be hurt. Have you told them how you feel? I tried. Mom thinks I'm being dramatic and obsessed with money. Of course she does, Aunt Susan sighed. Your mother has always had a blind spot when it comes to how she treats you versus your siblings. I've pointed it out before, but she doesn't see it. After ending the call with Aunt Susan, I found a text from Grace asking if I could help her organize her family's upcoming beach vacation. "You're so good at finding deals," she wrote as if nothing had happened. It was the final straw. "That's it," I told Leah, putting down my phone. "I'm done being the family ATM. Something has to change." Leah raised her wine glass. "Finally. What are you going to do?" I wasn't sure yet. But as I looked at the spreadsheet still open on my laptop, the one tracking every expense for the reunion no one attended, an idea began to form. The next morning, despite a slight wine headache, I woke with unprecedented clarity. The hurt was still there, a dull ache beneath my ribs, but something else had emerged, resolve. I reached for my phone and called Dr. Jameson, my therapist whom I'd been seeing sporadically for the past year. "I need an emergency session," I told her. "It's about setting boundaries with my family." Later that afternoon, in Dr. Jameson's calm, sunlit office, I poured out the whole story. The years of financial exploitation, the disastrous reunion, the leftovers in the plastic container that I'd thrown directly into the trash. "I'm not surprised this happened," Dr. Jameson said after listening patiently. "We've discussed your family dynamics before, and this event seems like an escalation of existing patterns." I wanted to stop, I said firmly. "I need it to stop." "What do you think that looks like?" she asked. "I don't know exactly. Cutting them off completely feels wrong, but continuing as things are feels impossible." Dr. Jameson nodded. "Boundaries aren't about punishing others. They're about protecting yourself. What would make you feel protected in your relationship with your family?" The answer came to me with surprising clarity. Financial boundaries. Clear, explicit financial boundaries. That evening, fueled by a new sense of purpose, I opened my financial planning software, the same programs I used with clients, and began creating a detailed spreadsheet of every dollar I'd spent on my family over the past 5 years. The Christmas vacation to Colorado, $7,428.93. Mom's 60th birthday party, $4,367.52. The loan to Kyle for car repairs that was never repaid, $2,800. Grace's temporary help with rent during her divorce and subsequent remarriage, $9,600. Dad's fishing boat contribution, $3,500. The list went on and on. The final tally made me physically recoil from my laptop, $62,574.89 over 5 years. An average of $12,514.98 per year. Nearly 20% of my after-tax income. My God, I whispered to the empty room. No wonder I hadn't been able to buy the condo I'd been saving for. No wonder my own retirement accounts weren't growing as fast as they should, despite my expertise in financial planning. I was subsidizing my entire family at the expense of my own future. The next day, I called Leah during my lunch break. "I need your help with something." "Please tell me you're finally standing up to your family," she said immediately. "I am, but I need to do it right. Can you come over tonight?" Leah arrived with takeout and determined energy. I showed her the spreadsheet, watching as her eyes widened at the total. "Audrey, this is insane. This is more than my entire student loan debt." "I know. And it stops now. Together." We drafted a message to the family group chat. I wrote and rewrote it multiple times, trying to find the right balance between firmness and cruelty. I didn't want to hurt them, but I needed them to understand the gravity of the situation. "What about actual invoices?" Leah suggested after our third draft. "You're a financial planner. Make it official." It was brilliant. I opened my professional software and created a template with my personal logo at the top, Thompson Family Accounting. Then I generated individual invoices for each family member's share of the reunion expenses, complete with itemized listings and my banking details for payment. "They're going to freak out," Leah warned as she reviewed the invoices. Probably, I agreed. But this isn't about getting the money back, though that would be nice. It's about making a statement. About saying enough. What if they don't pay? Then I'll know exactly where I stand with them. That night, after Leah left, I sat alone in my apartment. staring at my phone and the drafted message waiting to be sent. Doubts crept in. Was I overreacting? Would this destroy my relationship with my family? Was I prepared for the fallout? I thought about Grandma Eleanor, about what she would say. She valued family deeply, but she also taught me about self-respect. Never let anyone mistake your kindness for weakness. She used to tell me, not even family. Especially not family. To calm my nerves, I decided to set up a new bank account specifically for family transactions. I needed clear separation between my personal finances and any money flowing to or from my family. It was a practical step. Something concrete I could do while I gathered the courage to send the message. The next morning, I walked into my bank and opened a new checking account titled Thompson Family Fund. I set up automatic tracking to link with my financial software. No more blurred lines between my money and family obligations. That evening, I called Aunt Susan. I'm going to set some serious boundaries with the family, I told her. It might get messy. It's long overdue, she replied without hesitation. What can I do to help? Just be aware it's coming. I don't expect you to take sides, but I wanted you to hear it from me first. Audrey, I love my sister, but I've watched how this family treats you for years. You deserve better. Whatever you decide to do, I support you. Her words were the final push I needed. After hanging up, I returned to my drafted message, made a few final edits, and hovered my finger over the send button. In that moment, I thought about all the family events I'd funded, all the times I'd swallowed my feelings to keep the peace, all the financial sacrifices I'd made while receiving nothing but leftovers in return. I pressed send. From now on, all expenses will be invoiced. Then I attached the individual invoices for the reunion expenses to separate messages, sending them to each family member. I put my phone on silent, closed my eyes, and took the deepest breath of my adult life. Whatever happened next, I had finally stood up for myself. My phone started ringing exactly 3 minutes after I sent the invoices. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Then Grace. Then Mom again. Text messages flooded in, notifications stacking on my locked screen. I resisted the urge to look, giving myself permission to protect my peace for the evening. Tomorrow would be soon enough to face the storm. The next morning, I woke up to 27 missed calls and 43 text messages. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and began methodically going through them. Mom's voicemail was first. Audrey Elizabeth Thompson, what on earth is this invoice nonsense? Call me immediately. Her voice shook with anger. Dad's was more confused. Sweetheart, your mother is very upset about some email you sent. Can you call us and explain what's going on? Grace had left 3 messages, each progressively more indignant. An invoice? Are you kidding me? Then, this is completely inappropriate, Audrey. And finally, you need to call Mom. She's really upset, and it's not good for her blood pressure. Kyle's voicemail just contained laughter, followed by, good one, sis. You had me going for a minute there. The text messages followed similar themes, ranging from shock to anger to dismissal. I scrolled through them calmly, noting how no one acknowledged the actual issue, that they had abandoned the reunion I paid for without telling me. I decided to call Mom first, like ripping off a bandage. She answered immediately. What is the meaning of this, Audrey? Invoices? To your own family? Good morning, Mom, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm assuming you received the invoice for your portion of the reunion expenses? This is ridiculous. We don't invoice family members. Apparently, we don't show up for family reunions they've planned and paid for either, but here we are. Are you still upset about that? Grace's place was more convenient. More convenient than the venue everyone agreed to? I interrupted, something I rarely did with my mother. The venue I spent thousands of dollars on? The venue where I waited alone while you all had a party without me. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, Mom. For once, I'm acknowledging the actual proportion of the situation. I spent $3,274.56 on a family reunion that no one attended. That's not a small thing. So this is about money? I raised you better than to be so materialistic. This isn't about money, I said. Though of course it partially was. This is about respect. About acknowledging my time, effort, and yes, my financial contribution to this family. I've calculated that I've spent over $60,000 on family expenses in the past 5 years. The silence on the other end of the line told me this number had made an impact. That can't be right, she finally said. It is right. I'm a financial planner, Mom. I keep records. Well, no one asked you to spend that money. Actually, you all did. Constantly. And when I suggested sharing costs, the subject was always changed. When I asked for help with the reunion expenses, everyone ignored me. This has been the pattern for years, and it stops now. By sending invoices? Like we're clients instead of family. The invoices are a boundary. A clear statement that I will no longer be the only one contributing financially to this family. Mom's voice hardened. If this is how you feel, perhaps we need some distance. I need to discuss this with your father. I think that's a good idea. Take all the time you need. The invoice has my banking details when you're ready to pay your share. After hanging up, I felt shaky but resolute. One down, several to go. Dad's call was next. He took a different approach. Audrey, honey, your mother is very upset. You know how she gets. Can you just apologize and we'll forget this whole invoice business? There's nothing to apologize for, Dad. I'm setting a boundary. But family doesn't invoice family, he repeated Mom's earlier sentiment. And family doesn't ditch family at a venue they've paid for without even a phone call. I countered. This isn't coming out of nowhere. This is years of being taken advantage of financially. No one's taking advantage of you, he protested weakly. Dad, when was the last time you contributed to a family event? Or Grace? Or Kyle? It's always me paying, always me organizing, and apparently, I don't even deserve the courtesy of being included. His long silence told me he knew I was right. I didn't know you felt this way, he finally said. I've tried to tell you all many times. No one listened. Let me talk to your mother. We'll figure something out. Grace's call came in while I was still on the phone with Dad. She left another voicemail. Mom is in tears because of your ridiculous invoice. Fix this, Audrey. Now. When I called her back, she answered with immediate accusation. What is wrong with you? Invoicing your own sister. What's wrong with me? I repeated, incredulous. You all held the family reunion at your house without telling me, after I spent thousands of dollars on the venue we all agreed to. It was a last-minute decision. My house made more sense logistically. And no one thought to call me? The person who organized and paid for everything. We tried. Grace insisted. You didn't answer. That's a lie, Grace. There are no missed calls or messages on my phone about any change of plans. I checked. Her momentary silence confirmed what I already knew. Well, maybe there was a miscommunication. There was no miscommunication. You all deliberately excluded me, and now you're upset that I'm asking you to pay your fair share. I'm not paying this invoice, she said firmly. It's ridiculous. That's your choice. But going forward, I won't be contributing to any family events without equal financial participation from everyone. That includes your beach vacation you just asked me to help plan. Fine, she snapped. We don't need your money or your spreadsheets or your constant calculations. Some things are more important than dollars and cents, Audrey. Like basic respect and consideration? I asked quietly. She hung up. Kyle was predictably dismissive when I reached him. Come on. Sis, you can't be serious with this invoice thing. It's hilarious, but Mom's having a meltdown. I'm completely serious, Kyle. Your share of the reunion expenses is $546.18. Yeah, that's not happening. I'm between paychecks right now and the kids need new soccer gear. The kids didn't need new soccer gear when you bought a $700 gaming console last month, I pointed out. Having seen his social media posts. Are you stalking my purchases now? Creepy, sis. No, Kyle. I'm simply pointing out that you, like everyone else in this family, always have money for what you want, but never for what you owe. Wow, when did you get so bitter? This isn't like you, Audrey. This is exactly like me. You just never had to face it before because I always gave in. Later that afternoon, I received a text message from Mom. Your father and I are calling a family meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. at our house to discuss your behavior. We expect you to be there. I replied simply, I'll be there. And I'll bring copies of everyone's invoices. By evening, word had spread to the extended family. Some cousins sent confused messages asking what was going on. An uncle suggested I was having some kind of breakdown. But Aunt Susan called with unexpected news. I just want you to know I've sent you my share for the reunion, she said. I wasn't even there. But I want to support what you're doing. I checked my new Thompson Family Fund account, and there it was, $546.18, with the memo reunion expenses. Sorry this happened to you. Aunt Susan. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. It's important that you know not everyone in this family thinks what happened was okay. Her support brought tears to my eyes. The first I'd shed since starting this boundary-setting process. Thank you, I whispered. The family meeting the next evening was exactly as tense as I expected. I arrived at my parents' house to find everyone already there, faces somber as if attending a funeral. Mom had arranged everyone in the living room, with an empty chair facing the group like an interrogation setup. Audrey, Mom began once I was seated, we're all here because we're concerned about your recent behavior. My behavior? I raised an eyebrow. Not the behavior of abandoning me at a venue I paid for. We've been over that, Grace interjected. It was a miscommunication. It wasn't, but let's move on, I said. Opening my folder. I've brought detailed records of family expenses I've covered over the past 5 years. I thought it might be helpful for everyone to see the complete picture. We don't need to see your spreadsheets, Mom said dismissively. Actually, I think we do, Dad surprised me by saying. If Audrey has been covering this many expenses, we should at least look at the numbers. I handed out the individualized reports I'd prepared, watching as each family member's eyes widened at their personal total. This can't be right, Grace muttered, staring at her sheet. $17,328.45. That includes half your rent for 8 months during your divorce, the down payment help for your car. And your children's summer camp fees last year, I said calmly. Plus your portion of shared family expenses. Kyle was unusually quiet, staring at his own substantial total. The point isn't to make anyone feel guilty, I explained. It's to show why I've reached my breaking point. For years, I've been treated like the family bank while also being the least appreciated member. The reunion was just the final straw. So, what do you want? Mom asked, her voice softer than before. For us all to pay you back? No, I said honestly. I don't expect repayment for past expenses. What I want going forward is equal contribution to family events and expenses, respect for my time and effort, and basic consideration as a family member, not just a financial resource. The room fell silent as my words sank in. Is that really how we've made you feel? Dad asked quietly. Like an ATM? Yes, I said simply. For years. More silence. I paid my invoice, Aunt Susan announced from the corner where she'd been quietly observing. It wasn't even my responsibility, but I did it to show Audrey that someone in this family respects her boundaries. Her words seemed to shift something in the room. Dad cleared his throat. I'll pay my share of the reunion expenses, he said. And, I'm sorry, Audrey. I didn't realize how unbalanced things had become. One by one, reluctantly at first, then with increasing sincerity. Family members began to acknowledge the pattern. Mom remained resistant the longest, but by the end of the evening, even she had grudgingly agreed that changes needed to be made. I left my parents' house that night feeling cautiously optimistic. Words were one thing, actions would be another. But for the first time in years, I felt seen by my family. Really seen. The weeks following the family confrontation were quiet. I didn't call. They didn't call. The family chat group that usually buzzed with daily messages fell silent. It was uncomfortable but necessary, like the stillness after lancing a wound, before healing can begin. True to his word, Dad was the first to deposit money into the Thompson Family Fund account. The exact amount of his invoice, with a memo that simply read, I'm sorry. Mom followed 2 days later, though her transfer came without any message. Kyle surprised me by calling a week after the family meeting. Hey, sis, he began awkwardly. I don't have the full amount right now, but I set up a payment plan. You'll get $100 a week until it's paid off. Thank you, Kyle, I said, genuinely touched by the effort. That means a lot. Yeah, well, he cleared his throat. I've been thinking about what you said. About always having money for what I want but not what I owe. And you're not wrong. I appreciate you acknowledging that. A hesitation, then, actually. I was wondering if, maybe, you could help me set up a budget? Nothing fancy, just. I should probably learn how to manage money better. It was the first time in our adult lives that Kyle had asked for my professional expertise rather than just my money. I'd be happy to help you with that. Grace held out the longest, maintaining that the invoice was ridiculous and petty. But 3 weeks after the confrontation, a notification from my bank showed a transfer for the full amount. No memo, no call, just the money. Aunt Susan became my most frequent caller during this period of family recalibration. How are you holding up? She'd ask regularly. It's strange, I admitted during one of our calls. Part of me feels guilty for creating this disruption. But another part feels lighter. That's the weight of unspoken resentment lifting, she said wisely. It's always heaviest before you set it down. The real test came with Thanksgiving, the next major family gathering after the reunion debacle. Typically, I would have handled everything, buying the turkey, preparing most of the sides, bringing the wine, and still somehow being criticized for not making Mom's preferred type of cranberry sauce. This year, I did nothing but respond to Mom's tentative text. We're thinking of having Thanksgiving at our house this year. Will you come? I'd be happy to attend, I replied. What would you like me to bring? The planning unfolded differently than any previous family event. Mom created an actual spreadsheet, clearly out of her comfort zone, with inconsistent formatting that made me smile, assigning dishes and items to each family member. Dad called to coordinate who would bring which wines. Kyle volunteered to handle desserts, something he'd never done before. When I arrived at my parents' house on Thanksgiving Day, the atmosphere was tentative but warm. Mom had prepared the turkey, Dad had set up a beautiful table, Grace had brought several side dishes, and Kyle arrived with an impressive array of pies from a local bakery. Happy Thanksgiving, Mom said as she opened the door, accepting the bottle of wine and homemade bread I'd brought. There was an unfamiliar hesitancy in her manner, as if she was still learning how to interact with this new version of me who had boundaries. Dinner was initially awkward, conversation careful and polite in a way it had never been before. But as the wine flowed and the food was enjoyed, the tension gradually eased. No one mentioned invoices or money directly, but there was a new undercurrent of awareness, of consciousness about contribution and appreciation. After dinner, Mom pulled me aside. The bread was delicious, she said, and then after a pause, and thank you for the lovely wine. It paired perfectly with the turkey. It was such a small thing, acknowledgement of my contribution, but it nearly brought tears to my eyes. You're welcome, Mom. The turkey was perfect. She nodded, and I could see her struggling with something. Finally, I've been thinking about what you said, about feeling unappreciated. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. It wasn't quite an apology, but from my mother, it was significant. I know, Mom. You've always been so capable, so independent. I guess we all just got used to relying on that. There's a difference between being reliable and being taken for granted. She nodded slowly. I'm beginning to understand that. The real surprise came at Christmas. Traditionally, I would have organized and largely funded the entire family celebration. This year, Dad took the lead, sending out an email to everyone. For Christmas this year, we're trying something new. Everyone contributes equally. I've calculated the total expenses and divided by the number of adults. Each person's share is $285. Please send your contribution by December 15th. When I read the email, I actually laughed out loud from the sheer surprise of it. My father, who had never organized a family financial contribution in his life, was now creating payment deadlines. The Christmas gathering was the most equitable family event I could remember. Everyone had contributed financially, everyone had helped with preparations, and for once, I was able to simply enjoy being with my family without the burden of responsibility for everything. Grace approached me as I was helping clean up after dinner. The invoices were still petty, she said, but there was no real heat in her words. Maybe I conceded. But they worked. She was quiet for a moment, then, I didn't realize how much you were covering for everyone. I knew you paid for things, but seeing the total, it was eye-opening. That's all I wanted, for everyone to see the reality of the situation. For what it's worth, she said. Focusing intently on drying a plate, I'm sorry about the reunion. It was thoughtless. Coming from Grace, who rarely admitted fault, this was monumental. Thank you. That means a lot. The most profound change came in January, when Kyle called me in genuine crisis. He'd been laid off from his job and was panicking about making rent. I hate to ask, he began. Especially after everything with the invoices, but I'm really stuck. Would you be able to loan me some money for rent? Just until I find a new job. I promise I'll pay you back. In the past, I would have immediately transferred the money, no questions asked. This time, I took a different approach. I'd be happy to help you create a budget to get through this tight period. And if you still need financial assistance after we've explored all options, we can discuss a formal loan agreement with repayment terms. How does that sound? There was a pause, and I braced myself for anger or accusation. Instead, Kyle said, "That's actually really helpful. I'd appreciate that." We spent 2 hours on a video call that evening, going through his expenses, identifying areas to cut back temporarily, and creating a realistic budget. In the end, I did transfer him some money, but as a formal loan with a signed agreement and repayment schedule that he suggested himself. When my birthday came around in March, I received a card from my parents containing a check. The memo line read, "For the Colorado Christmas vacation you paid for last year. Long overdue." It wasn't the full amount, but the acknowledgement meant everything. By the time the next annual family reunion approached in June, exactly 1 year after the leftovers incident, the family dynamic had transformed. Planning happened collaboratively in the group chat, with everyone making suggestions and clearly stating what they could contribute, both in effort and financially. We held the reunion at a public park, a much less expensive option than Willow Creek Garden Resort. Everyone brought food, everyone helped set up. Everyone contributed to the cost of the pavilion rental. As we sat together at the picnic tables, I looked around at my family and felt something I hadn't felt in years, simply happy to be with them. Unburdened by resentment or expectation. Mom sat down beside me, watching as Kyle played frisbee with his kids and Grace helped Dad set up the grill. "This is nice," she said simply. "It is." I agreed. "I don't think I've properly thanked you," she said after a moment. "For what?" "For forcing us to change. It wasn't comfortable, and I certainly didn't like your methods." She smiled slightly to soften the words. "But our family needed it. I needed it. It's made us better." As I looked around at my family, imperfect, still learning, but trying, I realized that the boundaries I'd set hadn't pushed them away as I'd feared. Instead, they'd created space for more authentic relationships to grow. Later, as we were packing up, Aunt Susan hugged me goodbye. "Proud of you," she whispered. Grandma Eleanor would be too. Standing in that park, surrounded by family members who were finally seeing me, really seeing me, I knew she was right. The invoices that had seemed so dramatic, so potentially family-destroying, had actually been the first step toward healing. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that ultimately save our most important relationships. It's not always about the money. It's about the respect, the recognition, the reciprocity that makes family truly family. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? How did it change your relationship? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about family dynamics and personal growth. Remember, standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's often the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for the people who matter most. Thank you for listening to my story. And I hope it gives you courage if you're facing similar challenges in your own life.